This episode is brought to you by Homes for Our Troops, a nonprofit helping build and donate homes to injured post 9/11 veterans. Visit hfotusa.org for more information. And welcome to another Fast Take. I'm Rod Rodriguez.
And I'm Jack Murphy.
And we are coming off of our season premiere. We kicked it off right. We kicked it off. What did I say in our promos? We launched our season premiere with none other than Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. And it was a real treat for me. Unfortunately, Jack didn't get a chance to be on that interview. And I'm kind of glad because he's... you can be so antagonizing sometimes. I really don't need... we would have gone off track very quickly.
I don't think I have a depth of science knowledge to contribute either.
I don't either, which is why I left it to Dr. Tyson. But I will tell you folks, one of the biggest questions I've had out of this whole interview, and it hasn't been a question of science or defense or space exploration. Everybody wants to know, what's he like when you talk to him? Like, is he a cool guy? Is he like his interviews? And I got to talk with him prior to the interview. So we had a little pre-interview chat and a little post-interview chatter. And he seems like the same guy when you talk to him. So the very same Tyson, Dr. Tyson that you get, who gives you this long, very in-depth answer, is the same type of answer you get with a lot of like other questions, which makes me think like I'm now hesitant to ask him questions. I think I'd be more inclined to give him options. Like, you have A, B, C, and D. Which of these do you want to do? But it was a great conversation. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was the space race with China. And we talked at length about history and where physicists and astrophysicists and scientists fit into defense. But it seems like today especially, we have all these videos. And maybe, Jack, you've seen this video of a it's like a CGI. It's like early CGI. Maybe it's like early 2000, late 2010s, something like that. It's like a plane flying and these robotic arms put all these missiles. They're like missiles, or they're metal rods, and they fall from the sky, they hit the ground, then they turn into robots, and they start shooting tanks and stuff like that. You've probably seen this video somewhere, and it's very technical. It's about robots and flying contraptions, and, they're using mirrors to mask themselves on the battlefield like they're doing special effects for early Star Wars movies or whatever. It's very technical and advanced and very cool looking on CGI. When I first saw that video about 10 years ago, I remember thinking, wow, the future of warfare is going to be crazy. We're not quite there, but I can tell you that war and the way we train for war, the equipment we use for war, all of that has changed in the last 20 years dramatically. And we've talked about this, like the military that you and I joined is not the military. It doesn't look at all like the military of today. Things have changed. Things have evolved. Technology's gotten better. So we're talking space race. We're talking China. Where is this taking us? Jack, you've done a lot of stories on really kind of the evolution of warfare, special operations especially. Those guys are always at the tip of the spear. They always get the latest and greatest and the cool guy stuff because they've got the budget and they've got the necessity, right? They need this stuff to get their job done. What are your thoughts on, science, warfare, the evolution of all this stuff, and maybe even going to the moon with China?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge topic and kind of outside my normal area. But here's a little fun little tidbit that I've learned. So it's been made, I've published on this about how they're doing an experiment right now in the Army about moving from having 12-man special forces teams to 16-man special forces teams. So that would add some increased capability. Like they want to integrate the psychological operations guys into it, like an electronic warfare guy, that kind of thing. And I had one source tell me they also want to integrate a space NCO, Space Force. And I said, good God, what in the world is that guy going to do? And they're like, oh, well, he's not going to be like launching satellites or fighting war in space or anything, but he's going to be like the guy who knows all about the Space Force and goes and integrates with them and like communicates with them and stuff. And I mean, this is an experimental on paper idea right now, and it sounds kind of goofy to I mean, maybe like a special forces group headquarters needs one space liaison guy. I could see that, but I don't think every ODA is going to need a space guy. So there's that now. In regards to China, I mean, look, space is the ultimate high ground. We have been, the future of warfare, as many others have written, is the history of trying to create standoff between you and the enemy, and space is that ultimate standoff. In other words, the distance between your forces and the enemy's forces. When you look at to kind of help people like frame where we're going with this, or like why this is important. Space has always been militarized, but there are some treaties that kind of keep things in check. How much we abide by them is kind of controversial. But look at the drone warfare program that we've run over the last 20 years, where there is this highly technical system of locating, tagging, targeting, tracking high value targets, quote unquote, in all sorts of parts of the world, and then using a remote control airplane to drop a bomb on them from high altitude. One day we will get to the point where we won't need drones anymore, that these weapon systems will be in orbit. You'll probably be looking at some sort of a laser system that fires from orbit and literally can hit a pinpoint on the ground. For example, a person. So that's sort of an example of why this is going to matter. The future of warfare is going to be predicated a lot more than it already is on space. I mean, all the communication satellites and GPS we have up there, but I mean, now think about weapons, actual weapons being put into space, not just that enable lethal operations on the ground, but that are actually launched from orbit itself. And when Space Force came around, I remember reading like one of their charter documents, and at the time, everyone was all excited about like their ranking system and their uniforms and how's this and that going to work. But I remember looking through their document, and it actually talks about in-orbit weapons platforms. And I was like, why is no one talking about this at all? This is a huge deal, because previously we did have these sorts of treaties and these some of these agreements and some of these norms that we're not going to put anything up there that like blows up or does this and that. And I think that, that's not going to be the future. That's not going to hold out. So anyway, that's my little thumbnail sketch on why space is important from a military perspective.
Homes for Our Troops, HFOT, is a publicly funded nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans to enable them to rebuild their lives. These homes restore some of the freedom and independence our veterans sacrifice while defending our country. Nearly 90 cents out of every dollar spent has gone directly to supporting our veterans and enabling them to rebuild their lives. Visit hfotusa.org. That's hfotusa.org to learn more. You hit on a couple of different themes here, and it's funny to see SOCOM or SOF really looking at an MFT concept, a multifunction team concept, which is, depending on who you ask in the conventional side, was a success or failure. I was never that much of a fan of the MFT when it was in the conventional side, and that was like, hey, we're going to have a geospatial guy, a human guy, CI guy, and we're going to have this multifunction intelligence team here, and they're going to roll out and they're going to provide the warfighter with a multi-function intelligence capability. And what you ended up with was one or two guys not doing anything because the fight doesn't involve their domain as much as the other guys.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, some people might be upset with me for saying this, but special forces leadership, I think, tries to they're always trying to hitch their wagon to the new thing because there's a perception that there's money there. And how much of military operations, like, it comes down to money internally, and like, what can we do to get to the pot of gold? So like, after disinformation became this big story in the press, after 2016, 2017, 2018, all of a sudden SF wants to move into disinformation. They want to steal the PSYOPs job and bring that internally into SF. And now you're seeing, there's this thing called the Space Force, and I think it was the previous Special Forces commander, Brennan, who was saying, "Yeah, we need a piece of that." It's like, well, wait, what? Like, but you're Green Berets, you work by, with, and through indigenous personnel. That has nothing to do with space, man. But he made that statement on a podcast. It's not my opinion. He said we need a piece of that. But what does that mean? I'm not sure anyone knows.
Well, I will tell you, if that statement is what gets people mad at you, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. Folks, he's learning his lesson. See, time at Stars and Stripes is we've tamed the beast. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the weapons platform thing. So somebody looks at the weapons platform, they're not thinking, what could this actually mean? If you go back, a couple of 1,000 years ago, and so on, you go find one of these archers, right? Or one of these phalanx guys.
Yeah.
You ask them, what's the future of warfare? They'll tell you stronger shields that are impenetrable to arrows, better armor, a stronger helmet. They're not going to be predicting a rifle. They're not going to predict the atomic bomb. They won't be thinking about, and because that's outside the scope of their imagination. Now, kind of going back to space warfare, I've seen these cool pictures of, like, space marines, and they're hanging out, and they're in astronaut outfits, hanging out of what looks like a Black Hawk in space. And really, that's no different than asking, the Roman centurion, like, what's future warfare going to look like? It's going to look like this, only cooler. It's going to look exactly like this. So that's, I think, where we're at. We're not asking, like, what does an orbital weapons platform look like? Is it a death ray? Kind of going back to Rick and Morty. I don't know if you remember the episode where Rick tells the guy, if you touch me, you're going to die. He touches him. He just drops dead. And the president's like, what was that? He goes like, death touch. He's like, what? He didn't make a sound. He didn't do anything. Like, yeah, well, that's how it works. It's not going to be the laser, the red beam from the sky burning the ground. No, it could just be like, 1 minute you're alive, next minute you're not.
Yeah. I mean, look at it as a power projection platform that, we have these things in space right now that take your picture and spy on you potentially. But, if we want to actually devastate a country, there's all this military planning that goes into it. You move in aircraft carriers and submarines into the area. A big air campaign is getting planned. Maybe there's a ground component. But when you have these systems that are in orbit in space, I mean, some country does something we don't like. It's like zap, 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 zap. Oh, there goes your presidential palace.
Right. Or there goes your cabinet. There goes your generals. There goes that computer that you all rely on, which, and if that's what makes America great right there, is the fact that we run on Windows 98 still. So you can't just take us out like that. We're taking ourselves out. Just a 0-day exploit, folks. That's all it takes between us and complete Armageddon. They take away our PowerPoint. God help us all. So really, I like this. These are important conversations that I think we need to have, especially in the world of soft, in the world of conventional, because I think these two worlds are coming together. We've seen the global war on terror, where it seemed like special operations guys were off doing their thing. I mean, it's arguable that one of the reasons we had the not so great win that we all wanted in the Middle East was because we were fighting two different wars in a certain way. Everybody seemed to have their own goals and objectives. As we enter multi-domain, multifunctional fights where a lot of conventional is going to overlap with special operations, their goals are going to start looking very similar. There's going to be a lot more, I think, conventional support to those special operations missions. The technology to do that is going to be critical. As we go into space, I don't know what's on the moon. I have no idea what's on the moon. One of the things Dr. Tyson said is it's not about what's on the moon. It's about occupying the moon. It's about being there. If the Chinese are there, we're there. Because that moon, to your point, Jack, is an orbiting platform for something. Are we going to put weapons on it? Are we going to put vehicles? Is it going to be like the North Pole where it's like we all agree this is for scientific or Antarctica that we don't put weapons here, folks. This is for scientific research. Did we put weapons on it? I have no freaking clue. All I know is that they make special heating suits for those winter guys that are out there in the deep. I don't know if we have special operations guys in the Arctic or Antarctic or if there's weapons platforms. Don't know, but there's the moon. If the Chinese are there, we have to be there, which means we got to get ourselves there. So we're going to spend money. We're going to spend money to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested to see how that shakes up. I mean, to me, the moon is like more importantly, it's like the test bed before we go to Mars, right?
Right.
If we can do the moon, we can do Mars. But from a military point of view, yeah, like what if somebody, we're looking at China at the moment, were to go there and establish some sort of even if it's autonomous and it's like robotics or something like that, but puts up some sort of laser or rail gun, or I don't know what it would entail. But I mean, that's it's something that defense planners think about, even though it seems kind of outrageous at the moment.
So what's also outrageous is going to be the physical fitness needed of the soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen who do go to the moon, but especially our soft members. So before you can go and put on that green beret, you need to earn the green beret. Before you can go become a MARSOC guy, you got to earn that MARSOC status. You got to go out there and assess and be selected. So before you even get to selection, you got to be in the best physical fitness. So that's why I'm promoting Jack Murphy's Total Body Special Forces Assessment and Selection Preparation. The man is a living specimen. If you've ever seen him live, you just think you see Jack Murphy and you think that's the epitome of
this is all natural, man. People ask if I'm on the sauce. I'm like, nah, man.
But for $40,000, he will give you the keys to Special Forces Assessment and Selection. Jack, next episode, we're talking about folks that are offering. We're going to talk a little bit about folks that are doing just that. They're out there hawking their wares. They're using their tabs, their credentials to promote their own programs, and they're charging exorbitant amounts of money for it. Jack, take us through it.
Yeah, I asked Dr. David Walton to come back on the show. We talked to him on a previous episode about women going through Special Forces selection. And this one, he has actually put something together. He's put together a book himself because he has seen exactly what you described. There are all of these like online influencers that are kind of leading young people down the wrong path, in his opinion. Sometimes charging tons of money to get people ready to go to some sort of special forces selection prep or whatever. So he kind of talks us through what the course actually is, what it really entails, and how you can really get ready for it. I don't know. He's an interesting guy. He had a ton of experience with it.
It's so interesting because I remember when I was prepping for SFAS back in 2001. There was no real internet presence for stuff like that. I went to see some SF recruiter He's like, okay, here's this pamphlet.
I remember the pamphlet.
The pamphlet. It was like 8-week prep. And I was like, oh, cool. And I took that pamphlet to my NCO. I'm like, hey, Sergeant, can I do this for PT? He's like, no. Oh, thanks. And he's like, yeah, do this on your own time. Get back in formation. I'm like, like I was a young, disappointed soldier. I thought like, oh, they're gonna support this. Like, nobody cares. I got to do this on my own.
Oh man, I came back from Iraq, from a deployment to Iraq. They sent me down to Walter Reed to be a liaison for 2 weeks. Came back, and then I was doing fixed wing airfield seizures for like 2 weeks. The day that finished, the last jump on the airfield, the next morning, I'm on a plane to Fayetteville and began SFAS.
Well, I'm sure that, the Rangers keep you a little bit more shape than first the 27th Field Artillery.
They definitely do.
They definitely do. I'll never forget, our idea of fitness was how fast you could run, and that was just about it. One stellar NCO, I remember he would finish his 13-minute 2-mile run, cross that finish line, grab his pack of smokes, and just start puffing away. When you're done with a hard run, you start breathing heavy. He was using that heavy breathing to suck in more cigarette. I was like, how are you doing this? Like, I'm struggling with 14, and you're smoking like 2 packs right after. Godspeed. I don't know where he is, but I hope he's still doing it. All right, folks, that does our Fast Take. Thank you so much for joining us for this new season of I was going to say season of Fast Take, but that's not right. This new season of Military Matters. Jack and I have a really amazing season set up for you. I don't know what is up with me lately. I'm really focusing on kind of the science and technology stuff. Quantum, Chinese computing. What does that mean for us? We also got a couple of well-known authors. I've got Don Bentley, folks. He's going to be on the show this season to talk about Jack Ryan, talk about the world of soft fiction. What does that mean? Why is it important? And you'd be amazed at some of the stories he brings to the table too. So really interesting. Jack's got quite a few guys lined up. He's got a few stories lined up, as well as some very interesting topics we'll be tackling. And so far, we haven't tripped the wire yet, so we still have jobs here. So thank you for not sending that much hate mail. All right, folks, that does it for us. I'm Rod Rodriguez. That's Jack Murphy, and we will see you at the next episode. This episode was brought to you by Homes for Our Troops, a nonprofit helping build and donate homes to injured post-9/11 veterans. Visit hfotusa.org for more information.